joined the meeting. Inland wetlands.
Joined the meeting.
To address some of the issue, there's no evidence that the trees that were removed had an adverse impact upon the wetlands. What had an adverse impact upon the wetlands was the client not knowing it was wetlands, because it certainly didn't stand out in the garden. That was the main that's what we're trying to retract.
I would just probably, there probably should be an acknowledgement on the board one way or the other, because in the prior 2 permits, it was referred to as an intermittent water course, and you're referring to it as a ditch. If it meets the criteria of a water course, it is a water course.
It is a water course, but a water course, I mean,
versus
type for a variety of reasons, one of which is to prevent any adverse impacts of the water course upon the surrounding.
Well, and it may very well be that when improvements to drainage were undertaken in Booth Hill Road, in typical fashion, put catch basins in to improve drainage, but where does that drainage end up? It ends up on people's property, and as a result of that, over time, I believe, because on the corner property, there's piping in there as well. So, piping solves one problem, and then manifests itself down to a downstream owner. I recall back to a case that was involving the city with a similar situation. Intermittent water course was piped by one landowner and then exited at the property line at that point to another person's property. The city got embroiled. I guess they were involved with the city in probably 6 years of litigation. It predated my arrival here to this town, but I remember the formal town council, John Welsh, had stated, it's been settled, he doesn't want to hear about it ever again, but it was from indiscriminate piping for the sake of improving one landowner's property. So there's always some caution associated with making a good faith effort at improving your own property.
You're talking about a situation where back in the days of Booth Hill Road, it was not done the way it's done in the history, which is have a road, a plan, a development at the present time, and you're going to drain, you're required to get drainage easements. You're required to do it properly. You're required to determine from this commission and from the planning and zoning commission how that drainage is. That's the only point I'm making. We're talking Booth Hill Road. We're talking, that might actually probably be older than me. And, so we're talking a long time ago.
John, I just want to have for the record that you're satisfied with the plan they submitted for plantings.
For planting, correct, yes.
Okay.
And if I can, just to try and clarify some of Dominic's comments, but the catch basins on Booth Hill Road are in the low spot. Those catch basins going south towards Capitol Drive, grade starts to rise. Those catch basins going north up Booth Hill Road, that grade continues to rise. Catch basins on Booth Hill Road are put in the bottom of the road. It's not a catch basin that was put, on grade on the line further up. They're in the low spot of the road, so they get from both directions and pipe and then. Part of the plan, and then sorry for the. Part of the plan is in putting in a curtain drain, basically on the left-hand side of the pool. Water that ponds up, the pool is in a tough elevation, so you can't really grade to it. Well, we're looking at putting a curtain drain in that would just be on the left-hand side of the pool that then comes down and trying to drain that localized area.
Okay, I got a question for you. So now, at the top above the wetlands, wetland A, there it says, extend the French drain an additional 25 feet to interrupt the flow from the. Now, would that flow, is that the one that's denoted by the red arrow?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to extend that, catch more of it, because now it's not long enough in length to intercept most of that flow. All right, so you're gonna put that into there, then that's gonna connect down into that, which then flows into the wetlands? And then then the wetland drains out into what you're referring to as the swale or former swale, and then as well as the new, French drain or curtain drain that you were talking to, that's also gonna drain into that swale. So then, basically, you should be able to, the homeowner should be pretty well protected from that side of the property, above that wetland and below that wetland.
Yes, sir. Yeah, one of the comments that Dominic did make originally was that Wetland A, if you look up in that upper left corner of Wetland A on the neighbor's property, you can see how steep those contours are going up.
Yeah, I was trying to look there, my eyes aren't that good either.
Wetlands don't really, follow property lines, but you can, that flagging was done back in 2005, but based on that topography going up, that's a picture, but that's yard there. Argued at one time. Just want to, that upper left corner.
I have a question there, maybe for the, soil scientist. It's my understanding these trees, these oaks, or you got, red oaks and red maples supposedly you're gonna plant in the wetland area. It's my understanding that these trees can hold, like, what is it, 200 or 400 gallons of water when they're grown, when they're full grown?
When the leaves are out.
When the leaves are out, they hold that much water.
And I don't know exactly how much, but it's quite a bit. And I think I have tin oaks, wetland area, and then red oaks in the buffer.
Well, it says, actually in here, it says, tree plantings in the area, 1 red maple, red oak.
That's
The
in the
buffer
buffer.
plantings. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
flip back a page.
Oh, okay. Very good. All right, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Any other comments, questions? Anybody?
Oh, okay. Right, that's fine. Thank you.
Your wish.
On street property.
I'm sorry? That be you folks? Good. Please step up, identify yourself.
My name is John Fontana, and my daughter owns the property, 12 Capitol Drive, right to the right of Mr. Fontana. And, just a little background as well. I've been a builder here in town for about 35 years. In front of this commission, a number of times asking permission instead of forgiveness. And, I spoke to Mr. Tomaso when these were all gone. Asked him what was going on. I just wanted it for pricing. Around and started cutting the trees down, and I offered my number off, and he said, and then I asked about, talking to him, because I'm first to find out. No, he didn't need a permit for that. So, and then he started to excavate. Go in and excavate, and he put in a 15 pipe across the back of the property. The outlet pipe of that is 7 feet from the property line. The whole volume and the velocity of water now is falling in heavy rain. On some video, overflowing it down the property into that stairway. That's below grade, and it's water, about 8 inches worth of water. Back door. Moscow about that, he offered to pull that 15-inch pipe halfway onto the property, cost about $4,000. And my daughter asked me, and I said, no. Problem, and he would take care of it if there were ever one. These are just issues that when it rains heavy. So, hearing what the said the upper drain that's coming out, where do they propose that type of swell? Already getting volumes of water, velocity of water coming out of the pipe. Add to that. The other thing that isn't addressed on there is the outlet. Property not being addressed. You know, we've talked about this for a while, and the overflow and the overflows number of heavy rains. So, those are the things that we're concerned with, and we give John a couple of videos. Possible what we can do with them.
They're on the city's website. I don't have the technical, savvy to see if there's any way of pulling them up with our system.
So that's what
I don't have any training in that. They're so large that, you know, they couldn't be emailed. They're on it, but I did get the IT person to put them on the city's website after you had dropped them off.
I don't know. You don't have internet access here? I don't know if you guys.
I've never been, educated what they have here.
I just wanna see some of these. This is that area that I was talking about, and it's not just trickling, it's a waterfall that goes over it. That back door way that I was. 8 inches of water there.
And this enters,
That's the entrance to the house?
That's the back entrance to the house, rear yard. That's the walkway to it.
Walkway to the entrance.
Right, the driveway's that one.
That's full of water.
That's
water.
about 8 inches of water.
no, and you're saying that this is coming out of that,
It comes out of the outlet,
out of this,
right, and it overflows the creek, right. It overflows the creek, comes down.
because on your property then it continues as a
It continues
grass
straight
swale?
down. Yeah,
So that overflows and then drains
And
towards
then it drains,
the
and it
house.
pitches back towards the house, and it overflows out.
I have a question on that, where that pipe was put in. Never had an issue before that pipe was put in. The creek never overflowed.
Not since my daughter purchased the property in
How many years ago was that?
17.
17 years?
No, 2000.
No,
2017. Great, thank you.
John, did you look at this, complaint form, go up there?
I've been working with, both the engineers and the downstream property owners over this past, year, and Moscow's were very, quick to, retain the services of Don Smith, who came in to pull up those old site plans, demonstrated what was there before. And so the quest now is to determine what is acceptable to this commission. Besides plantings.
Do you have any recommendations?
As far as the piping, that's one of the key things that has changed. Whether or not the sheet flow has changed since that time frame, I don't know. There is no knowledge of what type of equipment was used after the trees were cut. Certainly, there is a certain amount of water that's held in the leaf of the trees, in the root systems of the trees, but more than that, where was the water, the bulk of the water coming before this work was taking place? And if the bulk of the water was coming not from the wetland, the bulk of the water that was in the system was coming from the Bluefield Road system, that dynamic probably has not changed too much other than putting in 60 more feet of pipe. If the 60 feet were taken out, you could say, well, we took out what was put in, more reflective of what it was before the work was taking place. You know, it was quite channelized before, it's more channelized presently, and upstream of number 8, which is the corner lot, also had been impacted for years. I'm not aware of any complaints, from number 12, in the time that they've acquired it up until this took place, last year. Whether or not taking out the 60 feet of pipe, would that all of a sudden restore it back to what it was? The amount of land that was impacted by compaction of soil. Whenever you have equipment, whether it's rubber-tired machines or track machines, that, as you pull that material out and you go back and forth over and grade it, it ends up creating a runoff coefficient more similar probably to parking than it does as a woodland. You have more sheet flow, but if that was only a small fraction of watershed that fed to a given design point, how much, you know, there was a report that done in 2005 by Mr. Jim Swift, who was an engineer for the previous owner that did a whole drainage analysis of the watershed, which is small. This site is near the top of a very small watershed. If I recall from the Mr. Swift's report, it was in the order of just slightly over 4 acres, that order. So it's not a very large watershed.
I don't feel there's an issue, not with us not knowing what's gonna happen with the Fontana property. So, there's a 60-foot pipe, you're saying take it out. It's a guess whether it's gonna stop this water going to his daughter's home. So, I mean, I have an issue with not, can't guess what's gonna happen. I think we need to see if it's
Fine, you know, we
easy.
haven't addressed it. I mean, you heard his side.
Well, we're just asking for our
I'm just making
a comment,
I have
Dominic,
another video
yeah.
too.
So,
The wallet training.
I understand there's two sides of the story,
Right.
absolutely, you know, but that's just a comment that I, you know.
Well, I mean, it seems pretty evident that if the condition didn't exist prior to the activities, right, then it has to be something along with the activities that were performed on that property, which now causes a condition on the other property. Now, I think what someone has to come up with is, all right, if you're now capturing more of this water that was on the Tomasco property and putting it into this swale or pipe area, is now going out to the other property where it wasn't before. So now there has to be some kind of something where it's addressed where now you can capture that additional water so it doesn't create the problem on the other property. I'm not, yeah, right, we're not
looking for recommendations
right,
from John.
That's right, that's, you know, what I'm saying, that would be up to, you know,
Let's see.
applicant's engineer. So let's hear from Mr. Thomas and see if you have any recommendations to solve the problem.
Well,
I don't think
If
it's
you-
John's
if you-
job.
Well, it is, it's proving it.
Well, no, I'm just saying that they, you know. All right, let's hear, Mr. Thomas, can we hear your,
Would you like to
Good.
see that video when
Sure,
it's
bring it.
actually raining? And, you know,
That's where the stream was, right? It's
that-
going right into
it's
the stream.
it's overflowing the stream now. Volume and velocity.
yeah, well, you know, I mean, obviously, it's hard to, calculate how much water was there, but obviously, there's water, I mean, there's, now with the activities on this lot, they've now captured more water than I think they might have anticipated.
And just the fact that
Yes,
the
no,
trees
yeah.
are gone, that breaks it up.
Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Disperses it. You know, we've done a lot of projects where at the outlets, we've had to put riprap in, just to break down the volume
Yeah,
and the
some kind of
velocity of it.
sponge pool, something, whatever, yeah,
Something, just even retention ponds we've had to do as well.
right. Well, yeah, right, hold it for, make some type of a
Right, so it
detention
slows
area,
down,
so it
right.
holds it, you know, and then lets it
So
out,
lets it out
you know,
slowly.
a little weir structure or whatever, you know, certain height,
You
right.
know, especially if it's like this, it comes out in a, like a fire hose, it really does.
Yeah, like I said, I think, you know, it might have been difficult to actually calculate how much water was gonna be generated, so, but that's
Right, but without,
neither here nor there, it still has to be addressed.
but without the trees there to break it up,
Right.
it's just free flowing,
Right.
so it's just coming down. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Thomas, I hope you have a solution for us.
Well, not a solution, but I think, you need all the facts, and the fact is, and Mr. Tomasco, and he's very quick testified, Mr. Tomasco said, before he did any work, there were sandbags, part of the building, the door, on the side of the adjacent house. They were having problems. When they would have heavy rains, his backyard and the backyard of the other would have problems. Ditch that runs along the backyard in the tuna house is normally not clear. It's just, it's a ditch. It's often vegetated. Engineer will tell you that nothing that Mr. Tomasco did with respect to his backyard increased the flow in that pipe. The issues before he put the pipe in, whenever there is a really heavy rain, and I'm just talking about a heavy rain, I'm not talking about 9/25/2019, you know, when, not talking about that one, but that would do anything. But we were just a heavy 1 to 2 inch rain, there is a problem, because water tends to run downhill, and even before he did any of his work, before he put the piping in, the swale would overflow. Mr. Smith can probably explain to you a little bit better, but if this piping, where the piping is, if the water overflows, if there is a heavy rain and the drainage ditch has a great flow and it overflows, topography, because I was out there, is going to take it right towards this house. Mr. Tomasco said that before he did any work, there were sandbags against that door. And in heavy rains, there would be a problem, and even Mr. Tomasco had a problem in his backyard. This isn't a situation that sandbags occurred only after the piping, only after the trees. So, in addition to that, you have a situation where the amount of water, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith, explaining the amount of water coming down that pipe in no way is increased. And if the situation is take some more piping out, I think Mr. Smith will tell you how far it is away. But if you take the piping out, and then the water starts overflowing the open ditch, not traveling down, because the property does topographically go down from Knoxville to Fortuna, and then into the ditch that is behind their house. Then, on the other side of that, it goes into a stream, a real stream. But I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith to explain the process.
Two things. One, the neighbor indicated that, the pipe stopped 7 feet from his property line. Not true, it's 15 feet. That's what he's indicated, based on current survey that was done after the pipe was installed. Two, I would expect the builder to be more informed of wetlands rules and regulations as they would apply to property than a homeowner have any experience in it, especially one that just bought the property and the homeowners that he bought it from said, no, there's no wetlands on the property. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. And then number three, so the work that was done in the upland review area, the tree cutting, those 44 trees that we're taking out, creation of the lawn area on the Tomasco property, that did not add any more water to the pipe. The beginning of the pipe is all the way on the left property line. So you've got activity in the center of the property that's not going to flow uphill and get in the pipe. So activity in that upland review area, the way the property was graded after the pipe was put in, but that sheet flow that comes down, there's a slight berm where the ditch used to be. There's a slight berm that then takes and directs it to the east. Whereas before, when that was an open ditch, all of that area came down, hit the ditch, whether there was enough capacity in the ditch or not, but as it proceeded down the ditch, once it overflowed the ditch, now it's flowing out 60, 70 feet up from the property line and creating other issues because it's going down lower rather than keeping it all up in the ditch. So I really do believe that, there's no additional water added into that pipe as a result of the work that the Moscows did. The way that that was graded takes and accommodates that sheet flow on the back side of the property more towards the ditch and away from the two houses, not only the Moscow house, but the neighbor's house. Benefit to have the pipe in. They did not add any more water to that pipe by clearing that and creating the water.
Another question for you, Don. Do you know what the substrate is underneath the pipe or in the remaining water course, either on the Tomasco property or the Fontana property?
That was one of the things I wanted to point out. We did not do any new wetlands flagging.
Not for flagging.
I understand, so.
Okay.
We did not do any additional wetlands flagging. We had the wetlands flagging that was done in 2004. With Wetland A and Wetland B where the pipe was put in. What John is asking, did we excavate alongside of the pipes to allow our soil scientists to kind of look and see what that material was under the pipe? Whether agreed or disagreed that it was a wetland.
Well, where I was going with that is not so much whether it was a wetland or a ditch or a water course, but if the substrate was, a granular hard pan, then a deepening might be able to be achieved, because if the water never leaves the channel, that would probably solve any of the old property owners' concerns.
I don't know whether you're limited to downstream side. Fairly deep, but probably.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it'd also have to be stable. But there's a couple of knobs of ledge, if I remember.
There's a very big boulder, you can see it right there, identified on the plan. Right on the plan, right up behind the right corner of the house.
What about the pitch of the pipe itself, right? That would also, right?
As far as velocity.
As far as velocity, because if it was pitch, if you could make the pipe, say, more shallow, then it would contain more water, like what you're alluding to, I think, John, right? So it may be able to, store more water in the pipe, because it won't just, as soon as it enters, it's gonna wanna, it's gonna wanna exit that pipe as fast as possible because of the actual pitch of that pipe.
Gradient of that pipe is, at the discharge of the existing pipe here, and we had the channel that we were meeting.
But would it be possible to, if you're ending the pipe 15 feet from the property line, I'm just curious if you could flatten it a little bit and then make some kind of a, not necessarily a plunge pool, but something of a little detention over there to further reduce the velocity coming out of there, or the flow?
Wouldn't be the flow, there could be some riprap added at the outlet of the pipe, so one, to try and slow the velocity down as it comes out of the pipe. Velocity coming out is that tight area there, but again, we do have about 15 feet from the property line that's out, reshaped.
Yeah, something to some kind of storage capacity, if you wanna call it that. Yeah, but I'm saying even, but, doing slow to velocity and provide a little more storage or detention area.
With the way that's flowing though, they would fill up pretty quick, I think. That water's really running. Anything you put there, I think will fill up very quickly.
Yeah, but I mean, if you shallow the pitch of the pipe too.
Yeah.
Okay, so then if the pipe sort of doesn't drain as fast, the pipe would then sort of end up having to back up into the wetland system.
Oh, I see,
right?
I see what you're saying, yeah.
You know, and then it would be stored there, it wouldn't run out of there as fast. Because it's right now, you got, it's like one of those little ski things, which glass fills up first, right? With
Yeah,
one at the
right,
bottom, so, if you got a pipe like this, it's gonna go.
Right,
If you shallow that out, and then put some storage here, and if it does end up filling up here, have a tendency to back up then and go that way.
And I believe that pipe is at about a 5% grade.
Okay. Just trying to see if there's a way to, slow the velocity as well as add some, detention, at the, where that 15 feet is. I don't know if it would be constructive, but it's, just something to alleviate, not cause any more problems for the Tomascos, but also alleviate some of the Fontana's, concerns and issues. Well, but,
When we speak about
but,
velocity,
just identify yourself against.
oh, I'm sorry, John,
That's okay, you can say it right there.
John Fontana. Velocity. Yeah. Coming out of the pipe.
That's why I was inquiring about whether, we could shallow the pitch of that pipe.
This is just how it overflows.
Yeah.
In a couple of seconds, you'll see it out of the pipe.
It's coming out with a fairly good velocity.
Right,
Yeah.
and you'll see it. The creek isn't deep, so.
Right,
that's
there's not a lot of storage
Right.
in the creek itself because of the,
Right,
the nature of it, right?
yeah, it's going up now, I think.
Pictures or videos of it before the pipe was put in?
No, because we never had a problem. So here's the velocity of water coming out of the pipe.
Yeah. Now, on your property, it's all open.
It's all open. There's a little crossover bridge just to the other side.
Ditch overflow. Basically, the ditch
The water crossover.
not the creek that it empties into. Your problem is the ditch.
No, yeah,
That extends from Tomasco's to your property.
right across the back of ours.
Is yours open all the way, or does
All the way.
yours doesn't end up into the stream that, Attorney Thomas?
Well, at the end of the property.
But that's on the other property,
On the right
not on
side of
yours.
the property, correct.
Now, is that ditch kept clear, that water course kept clear?
As often as we can,
Yeah,
not every day, no.
right, yeah, no, but I'm saying, is it maintained?
Yeah.
It is. And does it dry out in the summer?
There's always a trickle in there.
Thank you.
Question for, Don again. Don, has your research and your evaluation or analysis, when I look at the drainage analysis by Mr. Swift, his was based on the upstream side of the pipe at the west edge of number 8, which would be, on that image, would be on the left side. And so, his drainage analysis only did that portion, where clearly you can see from the contours that, it shows the little pond. Did your analysis look at the entire watershed to the downstream side of number 8?
No.
No. So I was just curious what the total watershed is at the common line between 8 and 12.
No, I did not, did not look further, but,
That would, if knowing that, would that kind of give us some ideas for solutions?
These pictures that you're talking about, they're ditch, they're photographs. this is the boundary line in here, and this is the ditch at 12. This is the ditch at 12 farther down, and this is a water flow, you know, the way the sloping of the property goes. This is 8, this is 12, and this is 1. So a portion of the ditch is, as was testified to, is open and clear. The portion of the property line, you know, has some overgrowth in it. You know, the question is, what, and again, my point is that you open it up, it overflows. If it overflows, as you can see here, if that pipe is opened up, it's going to take it down this way to where the door is that was talked about.
The door's on the back of the house.
The door with the sandbag.
Yes, the door is
Yeah,
here.
but there's also a door on this side.
No, there's not.
Well, not a door, but there was a, well,
No, there's not.
anyway, that's a picture of the ditch.
Dominic, could you show the chairman that?
Okay. Need some other ones, pictures of the ditch on the back too. Okay. And this is 8. That's where the,
Yeah.
and that's the beginning of the,
This comes to the property line.
huh?
This is where your ends.
Yeah, it ends
And
up here.
This is the open, this is the
this is
15
on
feet of
12.
open.
This is
It's
on 12.
Okay.
And then it, as it gets farther behind, it opens up.
Okay.
John, you talked about French drains. Question for you again about French drains. Are these new French drains, or are these to repair the French drains from 2005?
One in the upper left in Wetland A would be the one that was previously existing.
Okay, thank you.
John, is the city engineer taking a look at any of these?
Well, at this point, the only part that city engineer was involved with was because all this work took place without a street opening, growth occurred. So they have, which is where it's shown in gray on the bottom left of the image. But as far as the questions that are before us, before the commission right now, no, he hasn't been involved with, looking at any drainage analysis or.
It would be a benefit for us to have him maybe take a look at some of these things.
Commission's
I guess give us a better idea of the actual engineering behind this. I mean, that's what, I would like to see, you know, and maybe he might have a suggestion or something too. That would be what I would like. That makes sense. Right? So, wanna do that? You need to make a motion for that, or? Yeah, you need a motion to table.
That's fine, just, Ms. Bennett just pointed out one thing, since we are talking about the drainage ditch, but not the planting. She said this is the time to plant, rather than wait another month. But if there's a possibility, land enforcement officers can at least authorize the planting, that should be done during this time period.
My position, this is the ideal time. After that, it becomes more debatable as far as you get greater risk of losing your stock, especially with the trees.
Well, the restoration plan is, basically, we're talking about more or less where the drainage is, right? So.
No, we're talking about.
No, I'm saying, so one, I don't think would interfere with the other one.
I don't believe it would. As
Right,
far as
so,
my thoughts.
you know, so as far as I wouldn't have a problem authorizing the planting, you know, I wouldn't.
Well, I'd just leave it to him and the city engineer as to anything else that may disturb that, if they're gonna meet. That's all. It takes a day to do that. Just confer with the city engineer, as he looks at it, that there's no problem. You don't want that area to be disturbed if they're gonna be doing work.
All right, Commissioner Nappy said that, John will speak with the city engineer just to have him, not have any issues with the plantings.
Oh.
You know, they don't want it to,
And then it's automatic.
done in a day or something, so that
Right.
should leave you, providing he doesn't have any issues with that, you can go ahead and do your plantings.
Okay, and then we can have him consult on the issue.
And then we'll then we'll talk about the
Deal
other,
with
the other stuff.
the other issue.
It's a motion. I'll second it.
Commissioner Duffer made the
Charlie
motion.
seconded it.
is the motion?
Is the motion to table the application and refer it to the city engineer for,
Refer it to our administrator and the city engineer for further review.
and that would be seconded by, Commissioner Nappy. All those in favor?
Charlie seconded.
Oh, Charlie seconded, sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, so that's where we're at. John will consult with the city engineer, you should get a response in a day or so, but I don't think he'll have problems with the plan.
There's no need for a motion to authorize the planting, John's authorized it.
I asked if he approved it, he said he approved the plan, so.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, you're all set with the plan.
We just want him to check with Remus.
Just hold off a day until we check with the city engineer, though. All right. All right, John, that puts us back to item number 1, right?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if there's someone here that wants to speak to miscellaneous business. I would defer new business on the RFP to the end. 3B.
Miscellaneous business is my administrative reviews conducted for the commission.
Okay.
So those would be myself conferring to you guys.
Okay, we can go on then.
All right, so we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
All right, so let's jump back to item number 1 under old business, permit application 2102, Holter property, 23 North Princeton Drive, after the fact application for tree cutting and regulated area and upland review area. Mr. Cook, what do you have for that?
I have been in contact multiple times with these landowners, and,
I am well aware of.
and, they acknowledge that they had purchased a lot, they had limited yard space for a young family. They opted to go in and start cutting, they didn't know where the property lines were. They did overcut, they did retain the services of a surveyor, prepared the survey map, identified the stumps. I had them, don't touch anything, don't do any stumping. For the longest time, just leave the tops in place. They have retained the services of a contractor to help clean up some of the tops. And these maps were previously provided to the board. They did encroach on water company land, which is a separate issue.
That's between them and the water company, right?
Yep, and also further away from the wetlands. So, they do show a number of stumps. In the fact that no stumping took place, there will be regeneration since the stumps were not removed. The stumps were not ground. So, given a chance, it'll come in actually heavier initially. Not gonna be able to replace these 30-inch diameter trees, 16-inch diameter trees, 12-inch, 16-inch, there's a number of 24-inch.
Purpose of, cutting the trees?
Was to create yard space. They have 2 small children. Literally, there was 10 feet of land behind the deck, and it dropped down. This was a 1987 vintage lot, still fairly young in the review, very oddly shaped. I did pull out the full-size copy, but you can see how badly shaped it is with this jog and how it limits their yard space.
What's your recommendations?
To work closely with them to provide possibly some additional plantings to signify demarcation between the formal wetlands. There is some elbow room where they could create some additional yard space that they did not have before, albeit closer to the water company land. But the water company, I've been in touch with them, they've worked with us, they've sent their survey crew out to reestablish their property line. So that line will be known, so they'll be able to know where they can have some playscapes and do some additional plantings. I haven't been up there this spring. This is, again, one of those projects that started last summer during the height of quarantining and so forth.
All right, so do you need a little more time then to work this out with the homeowners?
Well, actually, I could work it out with the blessing of the commission if they think that putting some additional plant materials along the perimeter or possibly demarcation, such as a split rail fence, something that's attractive, that the homeowners can live with. And because in that wetland, that will grow thick. There's not even a need, because the majority of those, especially the maples, they sent out sprouts, so there'll be more stems initially.
All right, well, I think that's a good idea. Why don't you work it out with the homeowners and see what they would, run, your ideas and your thoughts,
If there was a impasse, I would bring it back before this board.
Right. Right.
There was no filling, no earthwork, no grading, no
piping, no nothing.
pumping,
Yeah.
no, just
I
demarcation.
think they still should file a landscaping plan and replanting plan officially with you. Have it on record.
Oh, yeah, yes, that's fine. All right, so
And
see what you, we'll come to an agreement with them, whatever you want, a split rail fence or some kind of demarcation like Joe said. And
Put it in the plan
and then, get a formalized plan of, like we always do, the amount of, plants, species, all of those things, have it all numbered out, you're gonna put in 8 of these, 4 of these, just like we would do on any other
when
project.
the planning's gonna start.
Yeah,
if the commission were to either make if they wanna make an action to get that as a stipulation as mentioned by Commissioner Nappy, then, or I could always bring it back as another.
well, yeah, why don't you work everything out, get it all set, then bring it back and the commission will look at it and we'll give you we'll take a vote on it.
I don't see any need to bring it back. I have faith in what John's done for 30-something years as to plantings. But whatever the feeling of the rest of the commissioners are.
Well, do you feel,
Rather than wait another month and bring it back, you get it.
how about if John feels he needs to bring it back to the commission, then you bring it back. Otherwise, if it's, like you and I talk all the time, if you're comfortable with it, so am I, so, no problem.
So you need a motion to accept it?
A motion to approve, subject to conditions of.
Motion to approve,
Subject
subject
to,
to conditions that, you're satisfied with, on there?
and a formal
And a formal-
landscaping plan submitted.
And a formal, planting plan submitted,
Right, as approved by the administrator.
as approved by the administrator, correct?
Seconded by Commissioner Dunford. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. All right, Kenny, you wanna get to,
It's up to John, what do you want?
well, these are all agent approved, these other ones, right?
These are, all those are ones I approved. As I like to do, bring them up to you, but, I've acted on those. If there's any, you can look them over, and if there's any questions, I can respond at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, let's just,
So item, new business, Constitution Park. We had a joint meeting with, P&Z and Inland Wetland, and the mayor made a presentation on the Moss property, or what's known as Constitution Boulevard North. And at that time, we brought out that, we would like to have considered a consultant to look at that. It's about 60 acres. There is a lot of wetlands on that, and we'd like to have that wetlands delineated, marked out. The last time that was done was, I believe, in the 1980s, and really to see what's usable property, and taking into consideration both the inland wetlands, the wetlands property, or any slopes. I spoke to the administration. They have no problem going with an RFP to the different consultants. I think what we need to do is just to see preliminarily what we want covered so that we could write out the scope of services to go out to RFP. So suggestions are to review of the plans of 1980s to make sure that they're still standable, including the wetlands, of course. Review of the wetlands area itself, and flagging the boundaries of the wetland and the review areas. And look at also how that interacts with scope, slopes, the steep slopes, and how that would interact with the wetlands. Then look at the usable land that's left. I don't think we should wait and do this. I think it's something that has some priority with the administration and getting it developed. And I don't want to run into a problem like we did with, Bridgeport Avenue.
What project on Bridgeport? I don't remember.
Whatever it's named.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, as I talked to you before, is I would recommend the subcommittee to come up with the scope of services and the RFP information and working with the city's purchasing agent. And then solicit ideas, once we have that, by mail as to anything else that they feel needs to be included in this from the membership, and then have the authority to have them issue the RFP.
All right, well, why don't we do this then? Why don't we have, you and I did the one with, on Bridgeport Avenue, so we have sort of after that one, we have probably a better idea of what to ask for in this one. So if you and I, and if Charlie, you wanna join in, and John, we'll get a little, ad hoc committee, we can meet next week.
Right.
We'll figure out a time, let's meet next week, we'll make up the RFP, and, well, let's get it in the works then.
Right, I think the motion would be also to empower that subcommittee to, approve that RFP
I'll motion for that. I'll make a motion.
in consultation by mail with the members.
The only one that can second it is him, and he has, so. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved, thank you. All right, now, as far as, that covers our agenda, I believe, so, as Mr. Cook said, just take a look at these if you need any more information, but we're not gonna go through them all tonight, and it's 36.
I had, worked closely with Chairman, during the height of things and acting on the commission's behalf, some of which were, one was an expired commercial application, but it was the same regulated activity. Another one was a driveway that, over a wetland, but the sewer and water were approved by the commission to be installed 23 years earlier. The driveway was going in that same spot. So consultation with chairman, he sanctions, and then some of them are the regular administrative.
Yeah, I mean, most of them were pretty straightforward, that's why I didn't have, bother, calling a meeting for, for us to come out and look at something that we're gonna go, and John will say, well, John will go through it and then say, well, I already approved it, you know what I'm saying? So these were all, not like, John and I, kept anything that was a little more, say, controversial, not controversial, but just a little bit more,
Involved.
yeah, complicated, whatever.
Right.
These are all pretty straightforward, simple things that, none of us would have even a comment on, so that's why we did it, what we did, so. All right, that all being said, anything else? If not?
I have some comments.
Oh, go ahead.
One, I just want to tell you that, every day, I'm in and out of the, P&Z and Inland Wetlands office, and, I just want to compliment John. He works well with the new staff that has taken over, both the planning and zoning staff works well with him. They help each other out, they cover for each other, when John's on his 3-hour lunch, no, only kidding. But a lot of times we don't know what's really happening because we're not there, but let me attest to that, and I just want to compliment him on it. The other thing I'm a little perplexed about all these people that are clear cutting, and then we're just passing it by, saying, well, okay, we'll take your application.
Well, we're supposed to have, right, it's an after-the-fact application, and after-the-fact applications also come with penalties.
Correct.
I'm not looking so much for penalty as that, I don't know what we have to do to stop the after-the-fact clear cutting. 44 trees, no matter on what property, there's a lot of trees to cut down.
Right, I agree with you. I think, though, if, in a situation like this, if the after-the-fact penalty raises a certain thing, I think that should be either put on the city website for someone else to see when they come to it, or at least be published in a newspaper to say, hey, look, you know what I mean? Yeah, right, something along those lines that, look, before you get into it, it's gonna be much easier for you if you come in beforehand and follow the proper procedures, because in the long run, it's gonna cost you time and money, because you're not gonna be able to finish your project because it's gonna be tied up here.
Where you talk to whoever does the Shelton Life magazine that comes out 4 times a year?
Yep.
Put it in there.
That's a good idea.
Great spot to put it.
The other thing, just to finish up on that, I think we should really look, or have John look at the planting plan. We should just make sure that it's sufficient, as much as we can, to take place of what was destroyed in that area. But maybe we need to go to a 2-year planting. We've done that over the years, going to a two-year planting cycle.
Right.
And that may be something that John should look at when he's bringing us the recommendation.
Right, and it's not always, dollar for dollar, as much as it is functionality. So that's something we have to look at also.
That's it. I'd like John to look at that by next meeting,
Yeah.
to see what exactly we need.
Well, you're there all the time, make sure he does.
It does have a tendency to be mine,
Yeah.
To be what?
to remind.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, no further business, make a motion to adjourn. Charlie? Second?
Second.
Joe, thank you, all those in favor? Aye. So noted. Thank you, everyone. Nice to see everyone in
Boy,
person.
John, you almost hit the nail on the head. You said it should be over by around 7, and the message left me. Very good.